The opinions expressed on the radio program by the hosts, co-hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions and responsibility of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Genesis Radio, www.genesisradio.com, Genesis Radio's owners, management, or affiliates.
All right, everyone, fire. Sounds real good. Welcome to GenesisRadio.com. My name is Kendall, and I'm your host. This will be the Empowerment Show. Please give us a call at 888-304-4401. Today, we're going to be talking about substance abuse, fentanyl, and drug rehabilitation. Today, I have two people on my panel. To my left, we have,
My name is Matt Delp.
and to my right, we have.
Mildred Stevenson.
Please, Matt, tell us who you are and what you're about.
My name is Matt Delp. I currently work at Brookdale, Premier Drug and Alcohol Rehabilitation Center right here in Scott Run, and I serve there as the Director of Care Operations.
Mildred?
Hi, my name is Mildred Stevenson. I'm one of the nurses at Brookdale Discovery, and I am working with the nursing staff.
Okay, so let's get a little bit into this right now. And today, we got a big situation going on with the fentanyl. Tell me about that.
So I can speak to this on both sides of the desk. I talked about that a little bit the other day. I'm a recovering heroin addict myself.
Oh.
And so I got sober in 2013, October. I just celebrated 10 years, matter of fact, on Sunday, October 29th. And in about 2012, when I was still using, is when I started to see in my own personal use, something was changing in terms of what I was purchasing. And it wasn't across the board yet, right? It hadn't found its way into just about everything, but fentanyl was starting to show up. And it was talked about, and I would consider myself extremely fortunate I got sober when I did, because the chemicals that I was using and the amounts that I was using, what's out there right now is what you're dealing with is Russian roulette. And, the thing people would say all the time was, the game is the game hasn't changed, right? I can say that the game has changed here. And it was in 2015 and 2016 when I can remember. I was working in drug and alcohol treatment at that time with men's long-term aftercare. And so a lot of the men that I was working with were in the age range of 25 to 35 years old, and primarily were heroin or opiate addicts. And fentanyl was what, they were overdosing on this, and we were losing more people to this illness at that time than I can remember, even from when I was currently using myself, and in the first couple of years that I was in recovery.
That Russian roulette thing, I tell you, I heard that the kids can take it one time, just one time, first time experimenting.
Yes.
They're out of here.
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with a chemical that's 1,000 times more potent than morphine. And, morphine being primarily the active ingredient in heroin that we would know. And then even with oxycodone and the other, the RX painkillers that were out there that people found and got addicted to and began to misuse and abuse and become, really kind of put themselves in a position of dealing with addiction. Now, there was a period of time a couple of years ago, somebody would come into treatment, and what are you here for? Well, I'm here for oxys. And then you would have a conversation with them, and you would get their drug screen back and say,
Absolutely.
the only thing that's in your urine is fentanyl. And because the pressed pills that they were buying on the street or ordering from the dark web, or wherever they were acquiring this from, what they were getting was not what they believed that they were taking. And that was terrifying for a lot of individuals.
So it's your job actually to do the assessment.
Absolutely. First, they come in. Our patients come into admissions, and admissions coordinators take the admissions. And then it's the nurse's job to do the assessment on our patients. They do a body check. They do assessment to see what the needs are. And once we find out what their needs are, they're also scheduled to see our primary care physician or our nurse practitioner. She will take them on, and also they will be assigned to a counselor. They will be assigned a buddy system we have, so they'll feel comfortable once they come in. I think it's all about the first impression, and that's one thing that sticks out with me, not only as an employee, but as also as a teammate, that we set our standards above, and that we are open, minded and understand that these patients need our services and we need to give them the utmost respect, understanding, and compassion that we can.
As I said, it comes from the top down. So I'm assuming you're up at the top. Now, with the type of programs that you have and the type of people that you come and do, are you diverse with the type of people? Do they come from all walks of life?
Yeah, and you have to be diverse in terms of being able to meet somebody where they're at. There's a certain percentage, you could say, that of genetic predisposition that somebody has that creates a level of vulnerability on whether or not they're going to manifest this illness or not.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece to that is environmental factors, psychosocial stressors, adverse childhood experience stuff.
You got to slow down a little bit with me. Social
stressors,
which is
the stressors that are created in an individual's life based on their life experiences or circumstances.
Okay.
All right. And so everybody's going to be coming from a little bit different of a place. One of the things I can rest assured of is if you're in front of me, there's an extremely high probability that you're suffering from this illness,
right,
the disease of addiction, substance use disorder. And so I can kind of put that one over here. And now let's work on, how am I going to help you in terms of meeting you where you're at? Because it's not going to be a one size fits all kind of operation. There's going to be certain things absolutely in terms of safety and accountability that have to be black and white, and we can't color outside the lines up, right? But once that is established, then we need to be able to get in there and work with somebody to understand where they're coming from. What are the barriers that have been in your way, short-term or long-term, that have prevented you from being able to get better and being able to unpack that with somebody and then develop a treatment plan for somebody that is tailored to their needs.
So are you in charge of any of that, developing the program, or
Actually, we are involved with the process of doing the assessment. Once we do the assessment, then we know which direction we're going to go in to do an individual service plan, as they would say it is. And then that moves forward to the counselor, and then it moves forward to the doctors as well. The doctors will assess the patient and see what the needs are. And we do it as a team. So it's step by step that they go through our system, go through our process, and then they are eventually seen, and we collaborate a care plan for them.
How about you set up the care plan? In other words, is it done holistically?
It's done through the treatment team,
Okay.
right? And so when anybody that comes in, they're going to have their primary counselor, they're going to have their patient experience, their case manager, and that's good. Those would be the people that they're meeting with individually on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
The team that surrounds them is the medical team, is the nursing staff, is me, other members of the clinical leadership team. And there are multiple touch points throughout the course of any given day, every day, that allow the team opportunities to have conversation and check in with each other because, what am I seeing? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you hearing? How is the community doing as a whole? I mean, a big part of this is the community piece. And so, the first tradition of fellowship is that the common welfare comes first, and our personal recovery depends on the healthy well-being of that group. And so how are we effectively addressing that?
Kind of like the trust. So you got to have the trust between yourself and your clients. Now you got a client that comes in and they, like you were saying, they say that they were taking one thing, but once they take a urinalysis and you kind of find out that they actually were taking something else. Or how about the clients that come in and they're like in denial? What do you do with that?
Well, on the average, most of them come in denying quite a few things. So we actually try to meet with them and discuss along doing our assessment of them about you try to get more closer to them and trying to understand and try to build a relationship with them when you're doing the assessment. This way they'll share more information with you. So that's why I said communication is a big piece. It's how you communicate, how you come across to the patient, And you'll be surprised at the information or your approach to the patient that you will get. And then a lot of it can be truthful, or then you'll find out once they meet with the doctor that they have some other things they haven't shared with you. So that's why we work as a team, because we put all those pieces together and we collaborate and understand what's the need of that patient.
Okay, we find out what the needs of the patient are.
Mhm.
We go through a little bit. Do you guys have a 12-step program? That's a common thing in most places, right?
Yeah.
Elaborate a little bit on the 12-step program, because I really don't understand how that actually works.
Sure. So the 12-step program has been around for since 1939, right? I mean, that's when, well, I guess 1935 is when Alcoholics Anonymous, June 10th, 1935 is considered Founders Day for Alcoholics Anonymous. In 1939, they published their basic text, their book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And so that's where meetings really, you talk about 12-step meetings and the fellowship of the 12-step community was kind of birthed in 1939 and through the early 40s is when that really came around. And really what they were able to demonstrate was that like-minded individuals, if we could stick together and we were like-minded in what we're doing, there was a better chance that you and I wouldn't drink today than as if we tried to do this on our own. And so that that community piece from the late 30s is still very much looked at and practiced and valued today, even in the way that we look at treatment and how we do things today, because the community piece is so important. And the 12-step comes from the 12 steps of that program. And each step asks something of you in terms of a principle, right? And so honesty, hope, faith, courage, integrity, humility, surrender, willingness, forgiveness, perseverance, connection, and service would be 12 principles, I would say, that show up when you look at what those 12 steps are asking of me as an individual. And then how do I bring those principles in my life today to influence a healthier decision-making process?
Or a healthy relationship with other people. And it helps you to build a bond with a team, because the 12-step is kind of like with a group.
So it's all about service.
All right, so
Altruism.
Right. Oh, Miss Stevenson over here. So in Brookdale, can you tell me a little bit about how Brookdale actually runs? Because I was there and it was such serenity. It was very peaceful. So is that one of your things that you utilize to help them out? Is that peaceful serenity?
Absolutely.
Those are the things that me and Pat and my coworkers, the staff, starting from our executive director to our DON to the nurses to everyone that's involved. We all.
Move just a little bit.
Yeah, move on a little bit. There you go.
I'm sorry
All right.
about that. So it's all of us that's involved that makes the serenity, the peacefulness, and the humbleness in our environment.
So here's a question. Why'd you get into it? I mean, I understand that you were a user at one time, right? Is that why you decided to get in to pursue this type of career?
Initially, it was a gentleman that I very much respected, that helped me get clean, helped me get sober, really showed me a lot of things in the first year or so. I was in recovery, approached me at one point, and I really got all in. I got 2013, but I had been trying this since 2001. So a lot of relapse in my story. And then it got worse, and then it got worse, and then it got worse. My story is not much different than anybody else's that suffered from this disease. And he asked me, would I be interested in doing some working with some of the guys in the program that he had. And I said, sure. And I wasn't by no means was this is going to be a career path for me. It just was, I was comfortable in the environment, and I started doing it. And the more I did it, the more I loved it. And the thing that I learned going through the process is I really like to learn. And I dove into working with other people, educating myself, trying to find people that were much smarter than me or that I was attracted to by the way that they carried themselves, and how could I learn more? How could I learn more? And don't get me wrong. I mean, there was a perfectionist piece to me too. Like if I'm going to do something, I want to know, and I don't want to look stupid.
I know exactly what
Right?
you're talking about.
And so, but I really loved what I was doing.
Right.
I'm a people guy, and
Right.
so here's a job where you can talk to people all day, and there's a value in it. One of the things I love the most is when I'm sharing something with somebody, like
Right.
or even with a group of people,
Right.
and I feel them connect to the information. That's a part about empowerment, right? You get to see it with somebody because now they don't feel like they're crazy anymore.
And then you get to share it.
You get to share it, right?
Right.
Yep.
Right.
And so the education piece for this is a piece that I really I love. I can say that I love it.
So how much formal education do you have to have in order to do what you want to do?
I have a high school diploma.
Okay, there it is. So just to let you guys know, you don't have to have a college degree to do what he does. You just kind of have to have the will, the drive, and the determination. That's not true?
It's true.
Okay. Now, how about for a nurse? What qualifications do you need?
Well, actually, you can either go to a college and get a 2-year degree, 4-year degree, or you can go to a diploma and get a certification as an LPN. An RN, you do need to go through a college or a nursing school to acquire that RN degree.
And then from there, why would you?
Why?
I wanted to get into what you're doing.
Okay.
Why did you get into what you're doing?
Well, just to give a little background, there's been a lot of drug and alcohol addiction in my family. And I have been through years of seeing the struggles that they went through and the challenges that I went through with them. And it seemed I had a passion to make a difference in someone's life. Initially, when I came out of nursing school, I was working with the elderly. And as I got closer to retiring, I decided that I really wanted to do something that would make a difference in someone's life and change a lot of lives from addiction. And that's why I chose to go into this field. And I'm very happy that I had chose to be in recovery and addiction and to see differences that I make in everyone's life that passes through the nursing station and interacts with me.
Mm-hmm. So look, what strategies, because I know you got to use certain strategies. So what strategies do you use to keep a patient on track?
Me personally, I find the most success in motivational interviewing. I'm also a big fan of my daily interact, or if I'm sitting down with somebody, I'm a CBT guy, I'm cognitive behavioral therapy. And so, the whole idea that your thoughts and your feelings dictate behavior, right? Fundamentally, I mean, that's really what cognitive behavioral therapy is about. And so, but with motivational interviewing, you were talking about denial earlier.
Yes.
Right. And everybody's coming in under, one of the hardest things to accept with this illness is that you have it.
Right.
And so to accept that you truly have it, it means you need to accept all that goes along with that. And that's extremely overwhelming. And so, motivational interviewing is a method of talk therapy that it operates from it's open-ended questions. Mirrored feedback, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I hear you say, right? And you feed that back to somebody. And then the affirmation piece. And, how do you help continue to build somebody back up when they're coming from a place where they're not feeling real good about themselves?
Mm-hmm.
But the open-ended question, allowing somebody to talk. Because what you find out more often than not is you allow somebody to say what's on their mind.
Mm-hmm.
You feed that information back to them. And sometimes they'll cock your head and look at, well, that's not what I said. Well, that is what that's not what I meant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but that is what you said.
Mm-hmm.
And so it gives you the opportunity to allow somebody able to start to hear their own patterns of distortion in their own thinking. And I found that extremely valuable and successful in helping somebody cut through the multiple doors of denial that they will show up with. At the end of the day, the value in denial is that I don't have to look at the truth.
Right. But sometimes you put in a lot of the hard work. You're doing all these things, the strategies, and sometimes they just don't seem to be working. So how do you help a guy that's in a situation where he's doing all of the things, He's doing the 12-step program. He's talking to the nurse about his problems and things that he's trying to get himself together, but it just doesn't seem to be working. What do you do with that?
In my world, intervention is not a dirty word.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that early on working in this business, and intervention is a necessity in my opinion. And old patterns of thinking are not just going to go away overnight because I really look at addiction as one's inability to reconcile their intentions with their behavior.
Say that again.
An inability to reconcile your intentions with your behavior. You are completely at odds with yourself. It's not a moral failing. It's just that the relationship that you have with the chemicals or behaviors over a period of time are in terms of the hierarchy of they are the most important things to you in your life. You believe that you need that to survive. And so breaking through that with somebody can be challenging. And the word intervention sometimes has a very negative connotation to it because of some of just the different things out there that they believe that intervention has to be this very confrontational situation. Don't get me wrong, there can be interventions that can be confrontational, but in my experience, 90% of the interventions that you do, it's not about confrontation, it's about conversation. And being able to help somebody see that, just because you believe it doesn't mean it's true, right? And so how do you get somebody to be able to look at the truth when they've been carrying around a belief about themselves, the world around them, or their relationships with other people that has been flawed and distorted for a majority of their life? And so it's a painful process. And my conversation with somebody earlier today is, they wanted, well, this is what's comfortable for me. I don't believe that's you don't look comfortable, right? It's not what's comfortable, but it's what's familiar to you.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's a difference. And so, well, that's how I've always been, right? It's what's familiar, but you can't tell me you're comfortable right now. And so how do we, I never thought about it like that, right? So now, boom, now somebody has a different perspective. Now we can work with that.
Right.
And now we have some trust, right? And, this is all I need in terms of trust.
Communication. You start with
Yeah.
communication between yourself, the client, and I guess you can start to build some trust that way, right?
Absolutely. I agree with them 100%, that communication.
So do you work with insurance? Do the insurance companies?
We don't. Our intake department does the insurance verification and any type of monetary concerns they may have. They would speak to our admissions and our intake department. Matt and I does not do with the finances or anything like that.
Yeah, have you heard about any issues with people getting in because weren't able to get in based on their insurance? A guy's got Medicare, Medicaid. Can he utilize the program?
Not Brookdale's private insurance. Most there's Medicaid, facilities out there, but there are, there's with all treatment centers, it's the same as really a lot of things in the healthcare world, is that certain places will accept certain things and certain places won't, and you have to kind of shop that around. And
so Brookdale is not one of those places where you have Medicaid.
No.
Okay.
No, we don't accept.
Okay, this makes a difference on the demographic of people that's going to
Sure.
come in. People in your situation is probably going to be people who got a little bit of money.
Or currently employed, or a family member, a lot of
Have
kids,
insurance, have
parents.
great insurance coverage, those such things.
Yeah. Is the cost, is it high or?
A cash pay, yeah, you don't see a whole lot of that.
Right.
It's in most, I worked at a program prior to this that was an aftercare program that was a private pay, and by the week, by the month, you pay as you go, but it was not it wasn't an inpatient treatment center. It was an aftercare. You needed to complete a minimum of stabilization or a 30-day treatment period before you would come to an aftercare.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that because of the type of treatment that you're going to receive, because I mean, if you're in a facility and people care about you, the money's not really going to.
Oh, right. No. I didn't take that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't want to make money the big factor. You know.
No, but look, it's a barrier for a lot of people in terms of being able to get into treatment.
Mhm.
You know, and that's something that has to be talked about. You know, how do you know, we have an illness right now that tears families and communities apart,
Mhm.
and being able to get treatment and get good treatment, right, is something that needs to continue to be talked about.
Well, honestly, I'm going to say you say it's like now. I mean, in our community, at one time it was heroin, and we called them junkies, and they were leaning in the streets. And no one called it a disease until it started hitting the rest of the population. Is when it became a disease.
Right.
Yeah. So I just wanted to hit you with that.
Yeah, but the language has changed.
Yeah.
It has, and
I mean, I'm glad that it's changed. I am, because we need to look at this thing as a disease, so this way we can actually get in there and treat it,
right,
and not treat it from
Absolutely.
from a criminal aspect.
right,
Now look at these people and say you're a criminal, like they did back in the day. You're a junkie. They put you in a label, stuck you in a jail cell.
Right.
They had you strapped. Some people were strapped like in the mental ward, right,
Mhm.
with their straight jackets on, and they had to go through the treatment of detoxing from heroin.
right.
So we don't do that anymore. So we've actually learned better ways
Absolutely.
of how to actually treat people like yourself, like yourself.
Right.
You know, and it seems to be working. Yes.
Oh my, yeah. We're in a much, in terms of the direction that I mean, even from when the last time I was in treatment,
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago, to what we're doing. I mean, we continue to make progress in how we can help land somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, talk about opiates. I mean, what's the single thing that any opiate addict or heroin addict is most terrified of? Is going into withdrawal.
Withdrawal was number one.
Right. And you know, that thing alone keeps people out on the street, right?
Mm-hmm.
Robbing, whatever you got to do to not get sick. And we have medications now. I mean, there's no magic bullet, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not okay all of a sudden, but we have these medications to help land people in a much softer way than maybe it even looked like a number of years ago.
You said like 10 years ago, right? That is when you started with recovery, right? And we were talking about fentanyl. So fentanyl has been around for quite a while.
I recall starting to see it in 2012.
Before the migrants started coming over.
Yeah. Yeah. It was showing up.
Well, they were saying everything comes from the migrants, right? They say the fentanyl, they're bringing it across the border, and I used to tell my wife, I don't know, kind of think they were making it here too.
Oh, absolutely, they would make it here.
Yep.
Yeah. So
2012. I mean, it was there.
right. So it's been a dangerous drug that's been around to our communities for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
This is nothing really new.
No, I mean, you wouldn't see it on the street. You know, I can remember 20 years ago. I mean, fentanyl lollipops and fentanyl patches and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the way it's showing up now, I mean, you didn't see it like that. But you started when the color of the heroin started changing.
Absolutely.
You knew something
was changing.
Oh, okay, you lost me here. I'm not in the heroin world. What was the color of heroin?
Heroin's brown.
Brown.
Okay, so
Original.
what color did they change it to?
Then all of a sudden it was like this tan color.
And then
it
it
was
became
white.
white.
And now you have a whole generation of people addicted to this stuff for a while that didn't even know heroin was brown. And the scariest thing for me right now is, especially in the younger demographic,
Mm-hmm.
they're looking for fentanyl.
Why?
Because of the high associated with it, and that's what they're after.
I mean, you get higher than crack.
Well,
it's a
whole
different kind of
high. Yes, absolutely. Crack is
Damn.
whack, as they say.
Seems like everything you take is a different kind of high, right? Heroin's a different kind of high than crack cocaine, or
Fentanyl, just plain cocaine. You have so many different choices.
Right.
Actually,
people just want to go to the stratosphere and
your
beyond,
uppers,
right?
your downers, and everything in between. And but that's, you're talking with somebody, and that's what they know they're getting it, and that's what they're seeking out.
Now let's say I'm in the military.
Mhm.
I'm out of the military. right? So, and I happen to get hooked on drugs or whatever,
Mhm.
and can I use my military benefits and so forth to utilize your services?
Yes, you can
Yes,
with the VA.
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Actually,
the
we do have a program, it's a Veterans and First Responders program that we have. I'm sorry about that. Actually, we do have a program for the Veterans and First Responders program at our community.
let me help her out
Mhm.
somewhere. All right, there you go. Like you said, you have something for the veteran community.
Absolutely, in the First Responders program.
Yeah.
First responders, okay.
Oh, yes.
That's firemen, policemen,
Nurses,
EMT.
doctors, EMT,
EMTs,
Yep.
et
nurses.
cetera, et cetera.
So if you picked up again, you're good to go, right?
No, he won't do that.
I hope not.
No, at least you know you covered.
No, right. But I will tell you this, one of the things that I learned, and it was said to me a number of years ago, and I've adopted it, is one of the things that helps keep me sober today is I know that I can relapse.
There you go. That's
Mhm.
right. Because they say you're always an addict.
Mhm.
Always an addict. 100 years go by and you're
Right.
still an
I don't have
addict.
to live like one today,
Right, that's right.
but it's there.
But you're an addict that can make a choice.
Today I'm in a position where I can make many more I can make healthy choices today.
Or you can make a decision to say no.
I have
I
the
used to smoke
support right now
cigarettes.
to be
I
able
used
to
to
do
smoke
that.
cigarettes a long time, and I went to the hospital, but I had some knee surgery done.
Mhm.
And when I was in there for the 2 weeks, I stopped smoking the cigarettes. Yeah. Yeah. Don't smoke cigarettes anymore.
Me neither.
That's good. That's good.
Well, I just wanted to bring up a little bit about the methadone.
Just 1 second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please give us a call. We're at 888-304-4401. We love to hear from you. Or you can tune in on our chat. Please send us a message on our chat. We love to hear from you. Thank you.
Kendall, as you was talking about earlier about the heroin epidemic back in the 60s, 70s, which is sometime around my era, the government decided to come out with what they called a alternative to heroin. Instead of having the junkies on the street, having them laid out, needles in their arms, homeless, and et cetera, they decided they was going to create this chemical called methadone. And methadone has become across the board a big concern for the medical because methadone is one of the hardest drugs to come off of, to be able to get clean and sober. And I just want to say that the government is initiating just alternatives for someone to not be a heroin addict, but then again, they're chemically dependent on methadone. What do you think about the methadone, Matt?
Struggled with it.
Yeah.
I understand why it's there.
Mhm.
I'm glad to be able to say that we have a number of alternatives to methadone. When you look at MAT and you look at treatment, I can say that I grew up in this idea that if you were, it was all or nothing, right?
Mhm.
Very black and white thinking about what it meant to be sober or be in recovery from active addiction. I can say now that as I've gotten more and more educated on the brain disease of addiction and understanding what it is and what it isn't, we have medications out there that save lives. And, I always, recovery's a journey, not a destination, right?
Yes.
And so, what does it really mean to be in recovery? Right? So there's a question,
The
right?
question, right, absolutely.
Well, I guess we have to have that conversation. And so, I've really looked at it as, the treatment of any progressive chronic illness is going to have to incorporate a level of lifestyle change, right?
First
You
and
see it with
foremost,
diabetes,
yes.
you see it with hypertension, right? You see it with a lot of other illnesses. And so addiction, very similar. And I've always well, not always. I've really started to look at some of these other medications as
Mhm.
a pathway to abstinence. But to your initial point with methadone, it's an incredibly difficult medication to come off of, right?
Absolutely.
And now, but then there is the story of the individual that they didn't respond well to any other kind of treatment.
Mhm.
And now here they are, they're on methadone, and they've been on methadone, and they got a job, and they're doing this, and they're doing that,
Functional.
and their life has gotten better. And so then I can't sit there honestly and be like, well, it doesn't work, right? But I think that it doesn't need to be the first option, right? And maybe not even the second option. Because I've seen the situations where there's the individual where, especially with the fentanyl and the stuff that's out there, you know, this individual that's sitting in front of me, his life is on the line.
Mm-hmm.
And so is that an option out here for somebody? Okay.
Could be.
And but there's a bunch of other conversations I believe that we need to be able to have before we just reach in and grab that. Because if we are going pathway to abstinence, right? The goal is not to be on something forever.
Forever, for life. Yes.
Well, that's why I was asking you if you use any holistic approaches to how you deal with the client or patient. Is there any treatments that we can utilize that don't involve drugs or taking of some sort of drugs?
I would say that the big picture is, how do I want to say this? 70% of individuals that you end up working with, you end up dealing with a level of untreated mental health, right? Or misdiagnosed mental health. Perfect example. Used cocaine for a long time. I was never honest with anybody about how much cocaine I was using. Everybody thought I was bipolar for years, right? Because the cocaine addict is going to present behavior and symptoms of potentially being bipolar.
Right.
Now, I was never honest with anybody about what was causing it. So, I mean, I was on this medication, off that medication, on this, and I can say today that I'm not on anything. I'm not diagnosed bipolar.
Right.
And so, one of the detox and the treatment process is getting a lot of these illicit chemicals out of the way, so we know what we're really dealing with. And people have untreated or misdiagnosed mental health stuff. You have unresolved grief and loss. You have unresolved trauma. You have unresolved family of origin issues. PTSD, absolutely. And so, they are all things that, you can make the argument, right? Well, did this cause? Well, let's not have the battle about, the cart, the horse, right? We're struggling with this, and we have a bunch of other things here that are unaddressed and unresolved, which absolutely support the addiction. And so let's get some of these chemicals out of the way, and let's start to look at some of this other stuff, other medications that we need to use in the short term to help get you landed and carry you through this, and probably not have to be long term. We'll be able to make that decision out here, but first, let's get you planted in treatment here so we can really start to put you in a position to be able to do something different with your life.
It kind of sounds like medication is the first choice.
It's something that you have to be able to have the conversation, because what you don't want to do is avoid that conversation from the place of, well, look, we have a lot of different protocols and things that we use. You don't want to over medicate somebody, but then again, you don't want to under medicate somebody. And then how do you get somebody stable as safely and quickly as possible to move them into some of this? How do we get you outside? How do we get you down to the gym?
Right.
How do we get you to make sure you eat 3 meals a day? Let's really have some in-depth conversation about your sleep hygiene. What time are you going to bed? How many hours are you sleeping at night? What's getting you up? Are you falling asleep, not staying asleep, right? Because sleep becomes so important. How much engagement and interaction are you having with other people? Do you get outside at all today?
So you constantly monitor and for their entire lifestyle that they live in. And you kind of try to create another type of a lifestyle for them, other than what they've been used to living in.
Right. Body, mind, and spirit.
Body, mind, and spirit. That's why I asked if it's the holistic approach. It's very much the holistic approach.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know,
You got to treat you got to treat the whole person.
the whole person. That's probably where you come in at, right?
Absolutely.
No question.
You have to deal with them all on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
But like I said, it's a beautiful facility. It really is. I mean, I guess if I had issues, I could sit back there on the lake. Even if I didn't have issues, I could sit back on that
Right.
lake all day and just really relax. I could see how it really can help people out. Okay, I want to ask you: is there any pertinent information that you would like to give out to the general audience?
Yeah. We've come a long way in better understanding addiction as the disease that it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we even said what I saw yesterday that the only thing more dangerous than no information is misinformation.
Yeah.
And we're so quick a lot of times to want to defend our own position.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I hear something that I don't agree with. I hear something that I don't like. I hear something that doesn't sit well with me. And my initial reaction to that is to be dismissive of it.
Mm-hmm.
And keeping it just with addiction is have the conversation.
Conversation, yes.
Because there's a lot of information out there, data. And we've come a long way with understanding what happens to the individual, what happens to the brain, what happens to the person once the disease of addiction has manifested itself. Unfortunately, we are not in a position scientifically or medically in terms of prevention. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't gotten that far yet. My guess is the next frontier is genetics, right? And better understanding that.
Yeah, because if
We're
we
not
leave
there
it,
yet.
If we leave it up to the medical society, there, seems like they're into it to make money. So as long as you got people out there sick, as long as you got people out there with the disease, then it seems like the medical industry is going to make that money. Yeah.
But what can we continue to do to not? There's a difference. There's a difference between not accepting someone and not accepting their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And I said earlier, the inability for one to reconcile their intentions with their behavior. And this drug addiction and alcoholism puts somebody in a position where they are disconnected from themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so their behavior is a reflection of them pathologically pursuing what they believe that they need to survive. And the example that I always use is, if we went around the neighborhood, if we took all the water
Mm-hmm.
out of this neighborhood and we put it in this room and then we locked that door, it would only be a matter of time before other members of this community figured out ways to get through. They would get in because they need that to survive. And when you look at what the behavior of an individual in the throes of this looks like, I mean, it fits that. And we've realized that being punitive and locking people up doesn't work, right? And people have paid the price for that.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're okay. Addiction's a disease, and we say that because we believe it's the right answer,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's what's out there.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you really look at how we interact with each other, sometimes the things that we say, how we say them, and the judgment that we can still use, even on ourselves or other people, is we still come from a moral place a lot of times. And so how do we continue to have the conversation to better, as individuals, as communities, as family members and loved ones, to it's not about bad people trying to get good, but it is about sick people trying to get well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can still love and accept you as a human being, but that behavior is unacceptable. And there has to be 17 inches, right? The home plate. There has to be the line. And look, you have every right to behave that way. but you're not going
not
to do it.
necessarily.
You're not going to do it around me. See,
Yeah,
I'm not willing to.
Okay.
I'm not willing to participate in that with you today.
Because the way you got to look at a lot of these guys. We look at the way that they treat their family members. They go back and they've robbed them. They've done all kind of heinous things to even just their family members. And then they get off the drugs and they want to come back like if nothing ever happened.
Right. Well, they got to demonstrate trust is gained by the drop and lost by the bucketful. And so you're going to have to work your way back. But I'll tell you what, we can start right here. We can start with a piece of trust, but we're not going to be all out here. And it's, the individual needs to demonstrate that they are doing something different. Like, nobody wants to hear
change.
Nobody wants to hear I'm sorry.
How much interaction do you have with the family?
At this, well, I'll be doing a family program Saturday morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what does that consist of?
A lot of education and support for the family members. And so, my analogy is addiction's like a bomb going off, and whatever's closest to it's what's most effective. That's your family members.
Yeah.
And they have every right to be angry. They have every right to be upset. The educational goal for me is to be able to focus that anger on what's the real enemy here, right? The real enemy here is the disease of addiction. And so how do we address that and attack that best or collectively as a group or a family unit? So I don't need to make you the enemy. And so you don't need to make me the enemy.
Right.
And that's tough because people are hurt.
Yeah, of course. There's already been the crime that's already been committed.
Right.
There's already been the action that's been committed against you, and now you have to say, well, yeah, he was on drugs. I had to give him a break. It's a little hard to do.
And
kind of a big pill to swallow.
And the way I like to try to talk that through is the difference between responsibility and accountability. And if we're dealing with an illness that you are genetically predisposed to, and there's psychosocial stressors, and there's environmental factors, and adverse childhood experience and unresolved trauma in your life that have allowed this disease to manifest itself, I can't say that you're responsible for having it, right? Did anybody ever ask you, right? So let's take responsibility and put it over here. Now, I still am going to hold you accountable for your behavior. And my hope is then we can get away from beating the individual up or even beating myself up for some of this stuff. But I need to be able to see the truth about what addiction has done to me, what addiction has done to my family, what addiction has done to my community. And that's going to be a painful process. But that's the piece that needs to happen, because the accountability has to be there. And then how do we hold ourselves accountable to continue to support each other? It's not, well, it's going to be hard. Well, of course it is.
No, you had a great support system.
I did.
Yeah, you did. It's pretty obvious about that.
I was I'm unbelievably fortunate. I don't know, right time, right place. I don't know what you want to call it, but the people that were put in front of me when I was at the end of the road this last time, I could sit in a room for 100 years and never figure out how that happened, right? I was unbelievably fortunate. And I'm not the guy that sits around and talks about gratitude probably as often as I need to.
Yeah.
But I am unbelievably, because I was,
Well, we do give out a moment of gratitude, so I'd like to thank you for your services that
Absolutely,
you give to the
my
community.
pleasure.
And we'd like to
Absolutely, my
thank
pleasure.
you for your services that you give to the community. We give our flowers here on GenesisRadio.com. You can be reached at 888-304-4401. Thank you for coming on. We really appreciate you having me here.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming on. We appreciate you having here. We have some information. We do have an information board.
Sure.
So
Sure.
on our information board, when we guests go on, what we generally do at the end of the show is we try to take all the information that we can so that we can then on our board. So for people to know. So if you guys have any information that you would like us to know or like the viewing audience to know, please. And one thing I would like, now, if there are people out there that do need help, like right away, Who do you call?
I am going to give them that information right now. Okay, we are Brookdale Premier Addiction Treatment, and we're located in Monroe County at 2455 Back Mountain Road, Scott Run, PA 18355. Our mission line, which is open 24 hours, 7 days a week, 570-355-7341. And you may also go to info at brookdalerecovery.com. And we do offer drug, alcohol detox, residential treatment, family educational program. We have a signature program. We as well have veterans and first respond program and intervention program as well. We have 24 hours, 7 days a week nursing staff. And if you have any concern about transportation, we do offer that 24 hours, 7 days a week. We have a medical director on staff, a nurse practitioner, and a psychiatrist that's available for services. So if you need to reach out, please take that number, give us a call, and you will be receiving a call back in reference to how we can help you.
Can you please repeat the number?
The number again would be 570-355-7341.
So if anybody needs any help, please give us a call. Give that number a call. You can call us at the radio station, and we'll make sure that we'll get the number and the information out to you. Again, Matt, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Appreciate you coming
Thanks for
on.
having me.
Ms. Mildred, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson.
Again, GenesisRadio.com. Peace. We're out.
All right.
Thanks.
Excellent.